Hello and welcome to Transcendental Transformation, the place where spirituality and transformation unite. Host Miss Raina imparts truth so that you can break through your limiting beliefs and evolve into a deeper consciousness. As you go about your day, remember, before every breakthrough, there is a breakdown. And now, let's start the show.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Transcendental Transformation. I'm your host, Miss Raina, and today is Tuesday, February 27, 2018. As always, we are coming live from the W4CY studios here in West Palm Beach, Florida, and I hope everyone has had an amazing week so far. Well, it's Mira's second birthday tomorrow. I am so excited. I cannot believe that my baby is 2 years old. It has gone by so very fast. Actually, she was born on leap year. She was born on February 29th, and since there's no leap year this year, it's not going to be for another 2 years. I'm going to start celebrating on February 28th. So yes, I can't believe, the kids grow up so fast, don't they? Before you know it, she's going to be 10 years old and everything. I'm going to be older. That's the sad thing. But yeah, I think I'm going to take her out. Last year we had a little bit of a party. I bought her some, there's a place over here in Wellington that makes like the cakes and everything and these special cookies and all sorts of stuff for the dogs. So I was actually going to do that again probably this year. Buy her a little cake, some cookies, some toys and everything. I mean, my dog is so spoiled. I swear she gets the best meats at Whole Foods. She gets the best treats. I make her treats. I mean, this dog lives the life of luxury, let me tell you. So, but this weekend, or this Saturday, we have football. Football starts this Saturday. I am so excited, and actually, I'm playing for my old team. The one that I was playing for before this past season, or for this tournament, and that I'm back playing with with my old team. So I'm excited about that. I miss some of the girls and everything like that. And I have a full week though, because I have softball Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and football. A doubleheader on football on Saturday. So I am going to be busy. By the time Sunday rolls around, I am going to be exhausted. I'm just going to be in, I'm exhausted kind of talking about it. I'm out of breath talking about it right now. But I'm excited about that. So, I want to wish one of my friends, Joe, a happy 43rd birthday. We celebrated his birthday this past Saturday, but his birthday was a week ago today. And, we went out and celebrated at PF Chang's and stuff. I haven't been there in a long time. Do you guys like PF Chang's? I don't, I do. I like it. I just haven't been there in a while. It has some good food and everything, and, it was good service. But afterwards, we went out and had a couple drinks, and, I even I had a couple beers, and yes, I was a little bit bad. I had a couple shots, and, I usually don't drink, but, and let me tell you something, it put me back. I've been dealing with this illness for probably about 4 or 5 months now, and everything was going great until after Saturday night. I have not felt well since Saturday night. I woke up Sunday with dizziness, palpitations again, and just not feeling well. My stomach's upset, and that teaches me, even the teachers have to be slapped on the hand sometimes, and with the message and tells us that, hey, even though you're feeling better, you have to you have to stay serious, and it's just a little lesson for me to stay serious again. But I wanted to make some announcements because, as I said last week, we were going to make some announcements about different things. And as you guys know, if you paid attention to my social media, I am going to be changing things in my life and changing things with the radio show and everything. When the contract ends here at W4CY, and I want to say that they have been amazing and everything, I am going to probably just not really do the radio show as much. I'm probably going to do it from home since I have a home studio there, and just put the shows on once in a while when I have time. I'm very busy with different projects, and a lot of times, I've been doing this for 5 years, and I love the radio show and everything like that, but it's just with everything I'm doing right now, it's just so hard to do the TV show, the radio show, and everything. And I figured, you know what, I can do the radio show still, maybe not consecutively every week and stuff, maybe once or twice a month, and still upload it to my websites and YouTube and everything like that. But you know, it's time for a little bit of a change. I mean, I love teaching you guys. I love, you know, having you guys respond and send in your emails and everything, and really, you know, interacting with me, at least behind the scenes. So yeah, I'm not disappearing anywhere, but stay tuned for all of that. So if you'd like to give us a call tonight, you can give us a call at 561-623-9429. You can web chat us at w4cy.com on the website, or download the W4CY radio app. And as always, we are coming live from Periscope right now. I'm filming Periscope. If you don't know what Periscope it is a little app that you can download on the phone and watch videos from all over the world. And we are at Transcendental 13. And as always, we are videoing for the YouTube channel, for the youtube.com/Transcendental Transformation. So let's get into tonight's show, because I got so much to cover, because, you know, this is a very, very close topic to me, and there's a lot of people. I did this show a long time ago, and obviously we're doing a show on dyslexia, and I did a show on dyslexia a long time ago, and lately I've been running into a lot of people like myself who have, you know, who have been diagnosed with dyslexia, and you know, and they always come to me, and they always seem to have a bunch of issues and challenges in life. And, you know, and sometimes they come to me and they say, you know, Miss Raina, it's like, I feel like I can do so much more in this world. I feel like, you know, I have a lot to offer this world. But, you know, everybody kind of, you know, lumps you into these categories as if you don't get good grades, or you don't do certain things and go to college and have certain stats, that you kind of, you know, are pushed away. And, you know, and first let me say, I hate the word disability, and if you've listened to my show before, you know I don't like the word disability. Why? Because then that tells us that there's something wrong with us. And let me tell you something, there is nothing wrong with anybody. And if you have dyslexia, ADHD, any form, anything, you know, there's nothing wrong with you. And, you know, so I don't like that word disability. But dyslexia is not a disability. Dyslexia is a very powerful thing if we learn to use it. And you know, and basically a lot of times people with dyslexia, you know, we kind of categorize it as dyslexia as being this lifelong condition that makes it difficult for people to read. But you know, it's more than reading. It's learning issues. It's having comprehension. It's the way we process different ideas, and you know, and the way our brain processes everything. And you know, and I always tell people, if you kind of think about it, you know, you have the cortex of the brain, and inside the cortex of the brain there's these little mini columns, and inside with the columns have axons. And in a normal functioning brain, where someone who doesn't have dyslexia, you know, or don't even should say normal, but someone who doesn't have dyslexia, they have closer, the axons are closer and the columns are closer, so the information doesn't have to travel as far. But with someone who has dyslexia, you know, these columns and these axons are further, so the information takes longer for the information to go from one column to another. And this idea creates what we call dyslexia, because, you know, as we know, that if it takes, a millionth of a second to transfer compared to, you know, something that's a lot slower and stuff, our brain is going to react differently. We may not process things. And a lot of times what ends up happening with dyslexia is we have, you know, difficult time with phonetics decoding. And so basically what if we break down dyslexia and we say, okay, well, you know, we have these columns and we have these axons, and, you know, it's a farther transfer, you know, of information and data and how we perceive things, and you know, it really breaks down to this phonetic decoding. Then basically what it does is, if I look at this, and I know a lot of you can't see me unless you're on Periscope or YouTube, if I'm picking up my can of water here, and I see this can of water, and I identify this, and I say, wow, that is a can, and it's holding water. Then what it does is I have to translate that into sound. Everything that we do, because remember, the brain works on pictures and sounds and everything, and the brain has to transfer that into an object or a sound. And so I have to be able to translate the object that I see into a phonetic sound. And that's one of the major problems with dyslexia, is the brain doesn't transfer, it doesn't decode the phonetic sound that we're looking for. And then so a lot of times, what do we do when we have dyslexia? We say, a word that we don't mean, or we say it, or we can't pronounce it, or we have difficulty. And if you guys have been listening to this show for 5 years, you know how many times I make mistakes with what I do. I mean, this is why I have all these papers. This is why, even though I do a lot of the show off the top of my head, this is why I have these papers, is because a lot of times with my dyslexia, it's not just so much reading. Yes, I have a hard time reading with things and different things like that, but a lot of times it's transferring information, it's remembering, it's recalling, it's saying what I want to say. Because I was talking to someone today, and I've recently met a friend online, and they were, this person was really, really nice, and we were talking about dyslexia and everything like that. And he said something that I agree with happens a lot with people with dyslexia, is that sometimes our brain, even though we have different mini columns or farther spaced mini columns inside our cortex, a lot of times our brain works too fast too. And so our brain is trying to compute all these different sounds and objects and ideas and images and everything, and it's trying to organize it, and it's trying to do its job. And of course, when the column is further spaced and it takes longer, and your brain is working faster than normal, then this is the problem. And a lot of people do have this issue. A lot of people do have this challenge. Let's use the word challenge, because issue, anything like that seems like we're putting a wall there, and I don't want to put a wall there, because anything in life is a challenge. We're going to challenge ourselves to lose weight. We're going to challenge ourselves to go to school. We're going to challenge ourselves to maybe get better grades, or get the job, or whatever we're doing. And there's always a challenge in our life. But dyslexia, a lot of times we put this idea into kids' heads that, and this was another thing we were talking about, is that when I was in school, one of the things that I had was I was told I was a bad kid. I was told that I was the devil child, as some of the nuns said back in the day, and I was a little troublemaker, but I was written off as stupid and lazy and a space cadet, because I had ADHD and I had dyslexia, and I don't take tests the same way other people take tests. My brain doesn't compute the same way. And so I had many teachers tell me, "Oh, Raina, you're just, they wave their hand at me and just dismiss me." Or some people, I've even had teachers tell me, "Oh, you should just drop out of school because you're never going to amount to anything." And, as a child, even all the way through high school, I heard that, as a child, when you hear that from an adult, one of the biggest things about dyslexia is, or any challenge that you have, especially when you notice that you don't learn or don't comprehend or don't read or process things the way that everybody else does. But, it gets frustrating, and it's devastating for a child to have to hear that. I mean, I know that I was always frustrated. When I was, my sister had very good grades. She could sit down, study, do everything, and I would sit down and study, and I would read a column, and I would read it, and I would be like, what did I just read? And I would read it again, and then some of the words would be jumbled, and I would say, wait a minute, I didn't read that right. And I would go, and it would take me 5 minutes to read one paragraph. And, how do we, and at the time, growing up in the 80s and the 90s, yes, I'm showing my age now, but we didn't think of things like that. We didn't look at like all these challenges of dyslexia and ADHD as we all do now. But, it was frustrating for me, and it's frustrating for any child to go with it. And I'm so happy now that so many kids have these options, that people are starting to understand that dyslexia, is a challenge. And because I know, and anyone that I've talked to with dyslexia sits there and says the same thing. You know what? I feel like I don't have the same chance in school or life as everybody else. And that's so disappointing to hear over and over and over, because right from the gate, they already believe that they have a limitation, that everyone else is running the race and someone gave them a 200-pound bag of rocks to pull behind as they go running, and nobody else has this bag of rocks. And, that's got to do something to us psychologically. I know I was frustrated. I know that. I mean, the teachers used to call me stupid and slow and lazy and all that stuff. And it wasn't until, I was even tested as a child. I didn't know why I kept getting pulled into all these rooms and having them, quiz me, put the square block in the square hole, put the triangle and that like simple stuff, count the quarters and stuff. I didn't know that, but they really thought that I had, that I wasn't smart. And later come to find out that I have a 182 IQ. So they were like, okay, well, she does all the things, her comprehension, she is able to do all these things. And then if she takes a test without studying, she gets an A on it. So what is going on here? And so I want to say to you guys that dyslexia, even though it's characterized by, difficulty, even though they say it's characterized by difficulty reading due to problems identifying speech and learning how they relate to words, it is more than that too, because, it's not just reading. And it's not just spelling and writing and math and everything that, because I went on many websites. I always check websites and go on dyslexia and or whatever I'm talking about that day, just to see kind of what they do. And from my own experience, yes, reading and spelling and writing are part of it, but to me it is also living life. It is how we handle situations. It's how we communicate to people. It surrounds us in every which way, whether or not we're going to be confident if we can go out and do speaking. I mean, that was one of my big worries too when I was going to do this radio show. I sat there and I said, oh, well, I don't know how to do a radio show. I've never taken anything. And then also, I'm dyslexic, and what if I start saying everything backwards? And then I had to stop, and I had to say, you know what, Raina, you know that you can do this. And so don't start getting that mind going, because we like to self-sabotage ourselves, because we've been told our whole life that we have a challenge or something's wrong with us. We'll be right back after these messages from the Life of Raina.
A message from the Life of Raina. We live in a world faced with many tough challenges. Our lives become chaotic and filled with disaster ever so quickly, most of the time before we even realize. Our issues beat down our mental mindset, and an imbalance of emotions become prevalent. The Life of Raina is dedicated to helping people on the deepest spiritual level. Miss Raina, the creator of Transcendental Development and Growth, works on your core issues and finds the solutions which allow you to break free from the emotional bondages of life, helping you achieve the life you've always wanted to live. Isn't it time that you lived life for you? Call the Life of Raina, 561-846-2190, and schedule your appointment today. That's 561-846-2190. Or email thelifeofraina@icloud.com.
Okay, everyone, we are back. You're listening to Miss Raina on Transcendental Transformation. We are talking about dyslexia. And, as I was saying, as I was continuing to say, it's more than just reading and writing, because a lot of people have difficulties in speech and patterns and recognizing things and translating. And, and we put ourselves down Because we think, well, if I'm going to go for this job and it's talking, it's speaking, it's doing presentations, or it's doing whatever, a lot of times we hold ourselves back in that sense, and we have to learn to understand, what's going on in ourselves. Sure, it can affect writing, it can affect spelling, speaking. I love to write, and if you ever see my blogs that I write, or that I used to write, I've taken a break from them the last year, but that I used to write, I have to go through it, and I laugh sometimes because some of the words that I write and some of the sentences, I'm scratching my head and I'm like, wait a minute, what did I try to say there? And I have to catch myself. And when I do that, I sit there and I've learned that, hey, it's okay. Because I love writing. I love talking. I love expression. I love self-expression. And I think that a lot of people with dyslexia and other challenges and stuff like that are creative. They are these people that are, the entrepreneurs and the creativity and the artsy people and all these different, type of ideas that, that we have to do. I can't do a 9-to-5 job. I've tried it. I've with, and it's just not in my brain. My brain is not wired to be able to sit there and wake up and do 9-to-5 every single day. It's not that. My brain thinks differently. The way I process things, the way I act, everything, and the same thing with the people that have dyslexia. It's one of those things that, I look at, I'm a horrible speller. Even though I have a very high IQ, I'm a horrible speller. And even though sometimes I'll be writing, and I'm so glad for spell check, because I'm sure you guys are too with dyslexia, that, even simple words, I'll sit there and I'll be like, understood. Wait, and then I totally forget, or I'll completely type the word backwards. I'll put like UNDST, RE, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oops, sorry, completely wrong. And I have to go back. But it doesn't matter if the word is easy or the reading is easy. It's not about that. As again, remember, it's taking the identification. It's how your brain identifies an object and putting it into a phonetic sound so you can process that and then translate it back out to whatever you're doing, whether it's speaking or writing. And a lot of teachers, I hope if you're a student or I hope if you're a teacher or whatever and you're listening to this, I hope that, that you take time for your students. If a student, not all students that act out are bad children. Not all of them you should write off, because I've had many of them do that. And, if I didn't have the extreme confidence in myself that I did, and it wasn't always there, but, through school, I felt horrible. And sometimes before I got to the point that I was, thinking about going through school and the shame and humiliation that I found, because a lot of people with dyslexia they feel shamed and embarrassed because they can't read or write, or they can't speak the way other people do, or because when they see something, they got to be explained it maybe 400 or 500 times. I know when I went to Oriental Medicine School, it was one of the most difficult things ever, of my life. And it's not because I couldn't understand it. It's because everything was in textbooks, and all the teachers would explain and speak in broken English. And then all of a sudden just be like, no, read the material. And it was just so much that my brain was trying to figure out. But if I saw it once, and this is something, and people that have dyslexia are like that, if they are active when it comes, so when they see it once, then all of a sudden they're able to do it, and they're able to adapt. And I hope that teachers learn to adapt to their students, because not everyone should, no teacher should ever, do the type of teaching where it's just all textbook and one size fits all, because you have so many different students walk through your door. How can every single student, learn the same way? And it doesn't matter, if a child has dyslexia or not, because even ones that don't have it, maybe are more visual, maybe they are more hands-on, maybe they are better readers or something like that, and that's the way they learn. Different brains, different ideas, different people, they all do different things. I personally was more visual. I was very visual, and I used visual aids still to this day. I would rather watch a video or listen to audiobooks in order to do my studying, because even though I'm hard of hearing and mostly deaf in both my ears, when I see the visual aids or I hear it, I'm able to process it differently than reading. Because like I said, I'll sit there and try to read, even my notes, I sit there and try to read, and for a second I have to kind of look at it because I have to focus and I have to slow my brain down in order for it to process what it is I'm reading. But you know what's funny about people with dyslexia is that we are very good. Our short-term memory is kind of horrible at times, but we are very good with long-term memory. We really are. Like you can remember songs, movies, the way the wind blew on this day and what this person was wearing and the scuff mark on this and the pebble that rolled down the hill and hit the glass this way. I mean, we are amazing long-term, or at least most of us are. And a lot of times, I know I'm going to get emails and say, well, Miss Raina, I'm sort of like this and I'm not, but we're all different. Some of us are going to agree on some of the things, and some of us, and that's the thing about it, is just because there's a word, dyslexic, doesn't mean that every person with dyslexia is going to fit the mold of what they say dyslexic is. And so we got to kind of take a step back and breathe, because I know we like to categorize ourselves and think about things, but I want to tell people with that have this trouble, if you want to do something, don't allow yourself to stop, because you're going to stop yourself because you hated school. I almost did. I hated school because, it was either extremely easy or I just didn't get it, or it was too tough because I had too much reading. And when I went up to the teachers, they kind of brushed me off like, well, just read the chapter. Well, yes, I could do that, but that doesn't mean I'm going to retain it. And how frustrating is that when you read something or when you want to learn something and you can't comprehend it? I mean, imagine people who don't have dyslexia. Imagine trying to read a page or a paragraph or a chapter in a book and not hardly remembering anything you just wrote, just read. See, I just did it right now. See, but imagine that. Imagine that happening, and imagine the frustration that you would feel. Imagine the frustration that you would feel trying to do something that you really want to do or that you see other people doing, and it's just not there. But so quick stats here. Quick stats. Did you know about 17%, and I think it's more because this was taken in 2015, and I think when I saw the 2016 ones, I think it was up to 20-something%. But, as far as 2015, the 17% of U.S. kids are diagnosed with dyslexic. And then they say that 85% of kids with learning challenges have dyslexia. And that they say also that boys are 2 times more likely than girls to have dyslexia, and boys will often act out more than girls. There are girls that act out with dyslexia too, and a lot of times, isn't that really what's going on? When a child is acting out, it's not because they're, they may be raised abusively, but there's always something going on. Children just don't act out for no reason. And like me, I was all over the place because why? I was being fed sugars and dyes in the morning, General Mills cereals and all that, all the dyes and everything. And with ADHD, it was making me even wackier. And then I couldn't focus. I would look at the wall and be like, oh, and then the nuns would come back and slap me on the head and say, Miss Raina, pay attention. And I would be like, okay. And then and then they would put an assignment and I would go to read it, and I couldn't read it. I couldn't comprehend it, and I couldn't focus, and then I couldn't read what I was doing. And so why? And a lot of times I did give up in school, but you know what? Later in life, that's when it happens that, and that's that one of the things I want to talk to you guys about later is understanding how we can, transform it. But listen to this. 35% of people who drop out of high school have dyslexia. 35% of people who drop out of high school have dyslexia. 50% of adolescents who do drugs or alcohol have dyslexia. 60%, listen to this. There's some debate between 60 and 70%, but 60%, or 60 to 70% of juvenile delinquents have been diagnosed with dyslexia. Those numbers are staggering. Listen to it. 35% drop out of high school. Why? Because they feel that they have no chance. Teachers tell them they're losers. People laugh at them. They're put in special programs that are treated differently, and they feel embarrassed. They feel shamed. 50% use drugs and alcohol. I know I did. I was just tired between being a psychic medium and feeling people's thoughts, and then having dyslexia and feeling like I'm failing at school, and having my parents constantly on me, telling me that, that you got to get better grades if you want to do something with your world or with your life and everything. And so I turned to drugs and alcohol. Same with a lot of 50%. And I really think that this number is higher with people who use drugs and alcohol, because there's always some reason we're doing it. And I know a lot of people don't tell the truth. Who wants to tell the truth? Yes, I do drugs. Yes, maybe alcohol because it's legal, but a lot of people don't tell the truth. Even in studies, a lot of people don't tell the truth because they're afraid of who's going to see it and what's going to happen. And then once they put it in writing, and that's been proven that a lot of people still lie during studies and everything like that. But 60%, this is what's wrong with our country. And I'm not going to get a rant. I'm not going to go on a rant of what we need to change for our country. But this is an issue. I mean, we're writing off the people that have challenges, or that have a different way of learning or processing things. And we're writing them off as bad people. We're putting them in jail. We're not teaching them how to deal with it. I mean, I don't care who you are, guy or girl. I don't care how old you are. If you feel left out, if you feel like that you have, and that's why I hate the word disability, because the word disability means that you're already behind the track, that you have no chance in life because you have a disability. And some people, they may ride the coattails, I have a disability and just want to collect a check. But if you're like me, you got to strive for that. You got to learn to use your challenge and do it. But if we're writing people off, and then, how else are we going to expect people to change? How else are we going to expect people to succeed in life if we're allowing this? And we are, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what's going on, as far as like their personal life or what's going on, or how we teach them and stuff. If someone starts acting out, there's a reason. And instead of just giving detention, instead of just doing all this stuff, why don't we have programs in our schooling and in job and our work and everything like that allow people to do it? Because after I went to get help with my dyslexia and everything, and I was diagnosed with dyslexia and then with the IQ and everything like that, one of the things that my psychologist did was she wrote a note and said, hey, Miss Raina has, ADHD and dyslexia, and she just needs more time on a test, because that was one of my biggest things, was that I felt rushed. I had an hour to do 100 questions and everybody else was flying through them, and I had to read each question 5 times, and then I had to think about it, and then I would second guess myself because I'm rushing myself even though I studied and I knew the answer. And isn't that amazing how that does that? Because when your confidence is shaken, when your self-esteem is low, and you have these symptoms, of trouble recognizing words that rhyme, or struggling words that transfer out, or saying different words or that you don't mean. When you have all these things going on, the time that they allow is not, it puts pressure on you. And it's the same with work. It's one of the reasons why I like to work by myself, is because, I can do what I want. I can take the breaks that I want. I don't have any boss yelling at me, telling me I got to do this and making up rules that I don't care about. And you know what? That's another thing. People with dyslexia, we also like to rebel against the rules. We do. We like to push back because we are creative. We are soul searchers. We are entrepreneurs, as I said, and we like to create, and rules just restrict us because in our mind, we have all this going on, and we don't want to have to put any pressure on ourselves at all. But I love working for myself because I can take my time. I can read what I want. I could stay up late as I want, or get up early as I want, and I can do, and like I said, take my breaks, and I can do whatever it is that I have to do in order for my work to get done properly. And sometimes even when I'm writing a show, I'll write a show, and it may take me 4 or 5 days, even though I already know what I want to write. And if I sat down, sometimes I could write it in like a minute. But sometimes because of the way things process in my brains, it may take me 4 or 5 days to write out one show, just because I like to take my time and really say, okay, what is it that I really want to think about? What is it that I want to convey? Because if we rush someone with dyslexia, what's going to happen is that they're going to, you're going to forget. You're going to add a couple points, and because our brain is trying to work because our brain works faster and it's trying to comprehend, and you have that space between the columns and everything like that, and it's not going like it needs to, then all of a sudden chaos is going to erupt. But, the brain, the brain is very, very, I love the brain. I study all this stuff and I look at it as far as everything. And, but, you have, like, if you have the brain and you have, like, the dominant side of the temporal, you have, and what ends up happening a lot of times is that that's the part that's going to understand the language. That's the part that's going to have to understand, what the comprehension is. And, these symbols and these translations, if the sound doesn't, even with me, with my hearing, if the sound doesn't come through, not just the visual, if the sound doesn't come through also, it processes the same way. And that's why I say it's more than just reading, because it can be sound too. You could, if the body doesn't touch, if you feel something and it doesn't compute the way it needs to, or the sound is muffled and it goes through everything and you just don't understand it and process it the same way, it's going to have a hard time comprehension. And, if we look at neuroplasticity, it tells us that the brain is trainable. So and that means that it's conditionable. As we know, if you listen to this show, that we talk about conditionings all the time. The reason why we believe what we believe is not because we believe it, is because you've been told it. You've been told to believe in a certain religion, a certain spirituality, a certain political party, a certain way. You've been told to believe in what's right, what's wrong, what's good and bad, and all these ideas. And that's not because you believe it, it's because you have been trained. And neuroplasticity tells us that. It tells us that the brain can be trainable. It is trainable. It can, but the great thing about that is it can be rewired too. So anytime you do any form of conditioning or rewiring, that means that we can retrain our brain to do something. And so I always use this example. I always say, well, if you're driving to a new area, the first time you're driving to a new area, what do? You sit there and you have you're looking out, you're looking at the directions and you're looking very carefully, and you're looking everywhere because you don't want to miss the turn or mess up the directions or anything. But what happens after a long time of doing it? All of a sudden, have you ever been driving and all of a sudden you're driving down the expressway, driving down the road, and you totally space out and like you're already home and you're like, wait a minute, I don't remember driving home. Well, that's because the brain has been conditioned or trained to do a certain pathway. It understands, if I see this, I do this, this is where I have to go. And this is the same reason. This is why our belief systems and everything, are so stuck and ingrained in us, because we have been conditioned or trained to believe a certain way. That's why in China, they believe in Buddhism. In America, there's, mostly Christianity and Catholicism, even though there's other things, and because each country trains their people to believe in certain things. It's not because the people actually believe it, but that is what certain people agreed on, and it's just passed down. So you have to be able to look at it and say, what are my habits? With people with dyslexia, we have certain habits. We have certain ways our brain is trained already. It's come out and it says, okay, well, our columns are spaced further, and so our brain is going to train if we can't do this and we can't do, and you train your brain to not believe in yourself. You train your brain every time you see a book to start stressing out. Every time you get in a classroom to start stressing out. I have a friend that totally, that went for a job and just fell apart because this person has trained their brain to stress out to realize that when I'm in front of somebody, I don't know what to say, and their brain fell apart, and that's what ended up happening, because in their mind they have conditioned that pattern. And so you have to be able to change that pattern. And this is why it's so important for you people who have dyslexia to work with other people. Find other people that have dyslexia. Work with psychologists, work with psychotherapists, or whatever. Work with different people that understand these and understand patterns, because when you understand what patterns is, and I always tell people this too, journaling is one of the greatest things, and I know journaling, you know how I am with that, but I always carry around notebooks with me, because especially when I want to find out something. If I want to find out my patterns, then I start looking at my patterns. And how do I find my patterns that I can't see? Is I write it down. I carry it around with me, and when I do something and then I'm like, oh, okay, I did this by habit. Okay, this is this. And when I saw this, I reacted this way, because that teaches me my patterns. That teaches me what it is that I'm struggling with. So if I look at it and I say, okay, well, I can read. I'm obviously smart enough to read, but I need more time to read. And a lot of times when I read with a thesaurus and a dictionary open, because there are some words, like I said, I'm a horrible speller, but there are some words that I don't know, and if I don't understand the context of the words, then I look it up, and then I look up, the synonyms of it and everything, and I try to understand what the author is trying to convey. And that's the same in my medical books. A lot of times I don't understand stuff or what they're trying to do, and so I allow myself to talk. I talked to my teachers when I was in school. When I did work for somebody and everything like that, I did, break it down. I said, hey, this is the thing. I do not look at my challenge as a disability. And that's one thing I want you guys to tell yourself right now, is I do not look at my challenge as a disability, because I want you to own your challenge. If you believe that something is hindering you, it's going to hinder you. If you believe that it's a disability, well, then you're already out the game. And I'm sorry, but this is Miss Raina here, and I don't believe that. I believe that all of you can succeed. I believe that all of you are smart enough. I believe that each one of you can do anything you want in the world, and I truly do believe that. If you knew me personally, you would know that I truly believe that. And but I also know that you and you alone get in your way, and that's why I hate when someone says, "Oh, you have ADHD. Oh, I can't do this," and they start, giving all these excuses. Why? So what? I have ADHD. So what? I have dyslexia. I have all these things going on in my life. I have even hearing problems and I still went to school. I still got my 4 degrees. I still came out, with all these different schooling and everything like that. I do my radio show. I stutter. How many times in this one show alone have I said the wrong word in place of something? Or when you hear me stuttering, it's because my dyslexia wants to say something and I'm catching myself and I have to stutter because I'm trying to reverse what I want to say. But so you can do it. So stop looking at dyslexia as something that's hindering you. You have to learn that there's a creative side to you, and train your brain for that. Train your brain for learning some creativity. And a lot of times it's as simple as doing anything, whether it's exercising, painting, or I don't know. I play sports because it's one of the way, I get the hyperactivity out of me and it calms my mind. Meditation helps, but I also have learned to do things with things. I break things down instead of trying to read, instead of rushing. And even with my friend Caleb, he is part dyslexic, and I look at it and he's like, well, I have all this stuff. I said, Caleb, look, you have all these papers to write. Instead of writing it in one day and rushing yourself and goofing up on everything, I was like, write it, take a few hours, take an hour this day, then take an hour this day, and then take an hour another day, and slowly write the paper, slowly do this. And, and right away, he's a smart kid, he's doing well, he's got good grades on the papers he's wrote already, and, and he doesn't feel the pressure. And that's the thing, is because we feel like we can't do something, we put pressure on ourselves. And we have to stop that. We have to stop putting pressure on ourselves because, people are going to laugh at people that, that have, a challenge because they're uncomfortable with it. Don't allow somebody else's ignorance to stifle your creativity or stifle your way of living just because they don't understand it, because you don't know how awesome you are. You have no clue how awesome and amazing people with dyslexia are. There's many people with challenges, and look at the things that they're doing. And so that's proof. If you want to, some of the greatest people in the world, JFK, Albert Einstein had dyslexia. If you Google famous people with dyslexia, I guarantee you would be surprised how many people, and accomplished. I'm not talking about basketball stars or the Kardashians. I think that's their name. I don't know who they are. I hear about people talking about them all the time. Or half these people. I'm talking about real people that have done something for the world. I'm talking about whether they were a president, a leader, they've wrote, relative, all that stuff, so, believe in yourself. Learn to understand that. If you look at it, and I look at ADHD because I mentioned it quite a few times on here, did you know that 15 to 40% of just people with dyslexia also have ADHD? And I know a lot of you probably are laughing right now and say, yeah, that makes sense, because, even though you weren't understanding, and that, a lot of times we do that. We'll sit there and have, multiple things going on because one thing triggers the other. And so a lot of times, we don't have people with dyslexia not only will sit there and have an issue with reading, but taking the time. It's not just because we don't think we can do something. It's also because we don't have the focus. We don't have, the calmness to sit there and we'd rather do something. And that's why I said, learn your patterns. Like I said, get me to read. Yeah, it's not going to happen. I'll watch videos, but when I study and I do things, even when I write out the shows or whatever, I walk around, do stuff and exercise and all sorts of different things. Sometimes I'll read or I'll watch a video or do something even while I'm at the gym or riding my bike, because it allows me to use that hyperactivity. It allows me to use all that energy in order for me to do what I need to do. And so, yes, there is if I can find it, I don't even know where I wrote it anymore. There is a thing, if you want to go on to it, there is a Harvard, Stanford, and MIT created this thing called edX, and that's edx.org. So it's edX, edx.org, and it's free online courses for people who have dyslexia. It's free. You can actually go and study some really good courses like math and science and biology and business and stuff, and you sign up and stuff, and you take real courses, and it's free, and you take your time so you can learn these things, because I think that's great. Like I said, I've never done it. I've done some research on it and stuff. People say it's really great, but isn't that amazing that there's some colleges out there, some major colleges? Hey, Harvard, MIT, Stanford, those are some big time schools, and that have put together a program because they understand that everybody deserves an education. Everybody deserves the same chance. So allow yourself to adapt. Allow yourself, whether you read out loud, whether you use audio, visual, whether you role play. I like to role play sometimes. Allow yourself to make the changes that you need to make. And I guarantee you this dyslexia is going to be great in your favor. All right, everybody, that is tonight's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to follow us, you can follow us on our Facebook at facebook.com/Transcendental Transformation. Visit my website, soulandspiritguide.com, and make sure you sign up for the newsletter to get VIP access to the website and special guest offers. Email me at transcendentaltransformations@gmail.com. Make sure you visit the w4cy.com website, and always remember to believe in yourself. It's not our abilities or our talents that make us who we are, but it is our choices. Thank you and have a wonderful night.